Hello, welcome to Sophie & Co. I'm Sophie Shevardnadze. The Islamic State has no shortage of recruits, and it's not just men flocking to join the extremists. Why do young women leave everything behind to become jihadi brides? What's so alluring about life in a terrorist state? Anat Berko, an expert in the psychology of terrorism, Lieutenant Colonel of the Israeli Army in Reserve, is with me today to shed light on this and much more.
The gruesome PR tactics used by Islamic State are giving the terrorists a recruitment boost, and young women are among those being taken in. Are female jihadists more dangerous than male ones? What lures girls into a life of fanaticism and violence? And how does desperation drive one to don an explosive belt?
Dr. Anat Berko, criminologist, terrorist psychology expert, Lieutenant Colonel of the Israeli Army in Reserve, and a recently elected member of the Israeli Knesset. Welcome to the show. It's really great to have you with us today. So, Dr. Berko, a 19-year-old
Great
Russian...
to be with you, Sophie, and shalom.
Shalom, shalom. So a 19-year-old Russian girl was recently detained on the Turkish-Syrian border, suspected of having been recruited by Islamic State after falling in love with a terrorist. Tell me something, how exactly does one fall in love with a jihadist?
You know, it's a very painful thing because those girls dream about relationship, about marriage, and they come to join for jihad. And in ISIS, they also promise them to set for them a groom, a nice groom. And at the same time, they want to escape from the house. And sometimes it's a very patriarchal, abusive family, and they feel the freedom to choose who will be the husband and how to conduct their life. And in this way, they find a way from Colorado, from Russia, from Paris, from other places on the globe, and come to join the terrorists of ISIS.
So you feel like...
And this is very painful because after that, there is no way back.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit about that, but first I want to talk about what really drives them to join ISIS as little girls. So you feel like that those are the girls who come from very conventional or strict families, and escaping to ISIS is just their way to get intimate with a man, so basically with a sexual context there, right?
No, it's not just sexual contact. It's a contact. It's to be able to choose your husband, but it's not for real. From my experience with the Palestinian terrorists, female suicide bombers that failed, and other female in terror, the oppressive house was part of that. And sometimes they told me that they felt much more freedom when they go and mixed with the boys and the opposite sex. And sometimes this, actually, in this society, especially in the Muslim society, considered taboo. So they feel like that they are going to have romantic relationship, and they are going to have fun and thrill and adventures with the warriors, as they call them, of ISIS. But it's not true. Many times they become slaves, sexually slaves.
Yeah, but Dr. Berko, I'm still trying to figure out the motives for these girls to leave, because not everyone comes from an oppressive family. For instance, the girl that I mentioned in the beginning, your Russian 19-year-old, she comes from a very good family. Very good family. A very loving, educated family.
Right. Perhaps we don't know everything, and this is the facade of the family. Sometimes when you dig inside, you find that there are sometimes incest in the family. I found it many times, incest and abusive house in many aspects. Mm-hmm. But we see that sometimes you see that the oppressive house and the oppressive family, and the only way to find a way out, and also idealization of the situation with ISIS. They don't feel that they are going to be slaves. They think that they are going to choose their path in their life, and they don't want... Also, we see that in this young age, many of youth are actually rebel in their parents, in their family. And instead of going to Woodstock or to go to other places, this is the trend right now. And you see that ISIS and call them and publish that they will set for them a house, a groom, and things like that. They will set marriage for them. They will get a special place to live, and they join this trend as as something that they feel that they're going to something better that they have right now, and also they're looking to meaning of life. Sophie, meaning of life.
Sure, but
because sometimes even
Dr.
if they are coming
Dr.
from
Berko,
good
it is
houses,
so easy also to find out what really is behind ISIS. Getting in touch with them, with jihadists online, is easy, but so is finding out about life under Islamic State. You talk about idolizing ISIS, but it's also all out there. Things such as getting married at the age of 9, always being accompanied by a man, punished for the slightest violation of dress code, or raped, abused, sold into slavery. I mean, this is all out there. This is an information that you can read about. And this is real. What's so attractive about that?
In the internet, in the internet, all the chats that seduce little girls to come and to do, and promises. I met with one female terrorist that she told me that she recruited by her lover from Kuwait. And I asked her, did you meet with him? She said, no, never in my life, but she called him my lover. And she was 19-year-old, and she was a student. She was fluent in Hebrew, Arabic, and English.
Are they always very young girls?
But at the same time, she called this guy her lover.
Are they always very young in age?
Yes. Not, sometimes they are, as you see, youngs, yes. Also, it's something that we see that the trend is for young. Sometimes ISIS recruited professional people that ask them to join ISIS, and they will pay them a lot of money because they need doctors, they need engineers, they need teachers, and they offer them a job. And they also open, it's not a madrasa, but such a university for medical doctors. So people who try to find opportunities, who get offered to get money and job, do not think completely that it's just one-way direction, that they wouldn't be able to change their mind, that it's very dangerous. They think that the guy who communicates with them, who recruited them, will be there and support them, and sometimes it's a smooth operator, but they know many languages, and it's easy to do that.
But talk to me about the guy on the other side, and I'm talking about the terrorists. They're trying to attract young girls from all over the world. Why do they need girls from Britain and German and Russians? Why do they need all this international pool of jihadi wives? Why just not, have whatever is around them?
I call this, I find it as a shahada mania. It's the obsession way to carry out jihad and istishhad. You saw women who wanted to offer themselves physically just as part of jihad. So those people looking all over the globe also to find women who can translate material, help them, and also this is so-called the moral justification that ISIS look for to promote those jihadi ideas, this ideology, that it's not less dangerous than the ISIS on the ground, because you don't have any borders for these jihadi ideas. You cannot stop those jihadi ideas from the borders.
You need to explain to me, Dr. Berko, how does the whole traveling logistics happen? Because these little girls, and we said they're very little, very young, some of them much younger than 19 years old, they travel from Austria and France and all over the world. They travel to these ICE-controlled territories. But how does it happen logistically? Who are these people helping girls travel, get across the border, meet their jihadi princes? Is there a way out of these girls? Like you said, no. Is there any way they could ever come back? And how do they get there technically? How does that happen?
It's very difficult. you have there in ISIS, they call it Khansa Battalion, speaking about the 7th century, the woman, the poetry, that she said that she transformed from Jahiliyyah period of time, ignorant, that become to be a very observant Muslim. This is the role model. And when you see little girls traveling, for us in the West, it's very natural to see young women traveling and flying. And I think that because of that, you could see women in the age, 3 girls in the age of 15 traveling and stopped in Germany because they were on their way to Syria. Some of them coming through Turkey and past the borders from Turkey. Now I think that it's not so easy like it was before, but we still see this phenomenon of traveling, of jihad tourism, of young people, males and females, who would like to join and to be part of something very big in their eyes. And I think that it's very big. It's the Third World War, and nobody pay attention that something very big is happening. And it's not just in the Middle East, because you have a lot of cells in Europe, in America, and I think that we will see that. It doesn't have to be in a mega terror attack like September 11, but we saw what's happened with Charlie Hebdo and the kosher mat there in Paris, and I think that we'll see more and more, because the ideas are flying. The ideology is in the air. It's not just to be physically join ISIS and to be part of the war there.
Dr. Berko, we're going to take a short break right now.
This is the real dangerous.
Okay, we're going to take a short break right now. You hold your thought right there. We're going to be back very soon. Just a short break. We'll continue talking to Dr. Anat Berko, an Israeli army veteran and a scholar of terrorism, about women who choose the life of violent extremism. Stay with us. Welcome back. With me is Dr. Anat Berko, an expert in the psychology of terrorism, and it's great to have you with us again, Dr. Berko. You have spoken to female terrorists, potential suicide bombers. Tell me something. Do they seem completely sane to you? Do these women know and understand what is it that they're doing?
Sophie, I call those women in the book that's published in English, the smarter bomb, because the trend is women and children, and we saw that in Iraq, in Afghanistan, here in Israel, women, that it's very effective, because we see all the security, the check, and sometimes the checkpoints or airports checkups that they do that. Women, people do not check in physically, and the perception is that a woman cannot be a terrorist. She's a mother, she's a sister, she's a wife, but she wouldn't be a terrorist. And this is something that terror organizations rely on. And we saw, I think that you know it very well, from the Chechens, Black Widows, and we saw women with explosive belts in Beslan and in the theater in Moscow. And we know that it's very effective, because sometimes in Israel, Palestinian women put explosive belt on their stomach, pretend to be a pregnant woman. And who will stop a pregnant woman or tell her, take off your clothes? I would like to check if you're not a female suicide bomber.
But tell me something from your experience. Are women and girls pressured into committing terror acts, or is it an act of free will?
No, I think that from my experience, and it's first-hand research, more than 20 years, face-to-face with terrorists and leaders from Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other organizations, in this society, there is no pardon for a woman who actually took the wrong path and communicate with the opposite sex without being married. And sometimes they found this way to escape from forced marriage, from abusive house. Sometimes they set marriage with old guy for them, and they wanted to come and just to escape from that, and they come to the border with Israel with a knife, and even do not try to stop the soldier, just throw the knife and said, oh, just take me away from here. I would like to get a shelter, and I don't want to kill anybody.
Dr. Berko, how does a girl go from just being an unhappy person to a terrorist? Okay, I understand there's, let's say, a girl who is dishonored and she can't marry, or she's forced into a marriage, like you say. She doesn't fit in the society, but still, you know, it's quite a stretch from being miserable to becoming a terrorist. Does someone just walk up to her and say, hey, why not become a suicide bomber?
Because, Sophie, it's another way of thinking. We are in the West think in a different way. Sometimes it doesn't start with the fact that somebody tell her, oh, would you like to go and to be a shahida, a female martyr? No, it starts with, you know, come, take some training, meet with the people, and after that, they push her to do that. I met with a girl that told me, I just want to have fun and thrill and adventures and to meet with the opposite sex. I didn't intend to go and to be a shahida. But after that, they told me, you have met with us, you know us, and I couldn't do anything. I started screaming and crying, and I wanted to speak with my family, and nobody let me do that. And they pushed me to do a suicide attack. And the IDF soldiers, the Israeli soldiers, stopped her and other two boys on the way to the target.
But
so sometimes it doesn't, there is no intention in, in advance to be a shahida, to be a female martyr. But after that, they don't have any choice because they push them to do so. She told me, I almost fainted. I told the guy, the dispatcher, if I only knew that I'm going to do so, I was much more observant Muslim. I wouldn't listen to music. I wouldn't watch TV. I would prepare myself, but I didn't want to do so.
But Dr. Berko,
now you know us and we know you, so you must do that.
But agree that not everyone is stripped of choice. There are some, suicide bombers who do it for ideology-wise, and I don't only mean girls, but men as well. So in your experience, what makes a suicide bomber do what he does? Do men really believe in the dozens of virgins they'll supposedly get to enjoy after they sacrifice themselves for God? Okay. I mean, this is an eternal question that I'm trying to figure out because some Islamic scholars say that's, complete nonsense. Okay. And then the others say, no, actually, it's true.
From my experience, it's a very tangible idea. But for the girls, she wouldn't get 72 male virgins.
So what does the girls get as well?
One of the virgins. She'll be one of the virgins. Eternal virginity. She'll see the face of Allah. She'll be able to see the face of the Prophet. She'll meet with the other shaheeds. She'll have, it's very interesting because it's very different from the male shaheeds. Why? Because she said she will eat, but she wouldn't give birth in paradise. She wouldn't be a mother because she's very tired from that, because sometimes they have a lot of children. And she would be able to choose her husband. And she'll be a virgin forever, eternal virginity. So in a society that virginity are much more than life, it's also a big, big issue. Mm-hmm. The other thing that one woman told me that her husband used to beat her. And she said, he'll go to hell and I'll go to paradise. And then I can choose my husband. Because many times the sheiks, they're saying, you'll meet your husband in paradise, you'll meet your friend. I would like to add something. There is motive of revenge sometimes. There is motive of hatred, nationality, or things like that. And there is a conflict of cultures between the East and the West, between Arabs and, the Muslim world and the West. Especially, it's very interesting to see youth speaking what they are going to get in paradise, they are saying
Dr.
everything
Burko.
that is forbidden in this world will get in paradise.
That's my next question, and it's a kind of a tricky question, but hear me out. So those who blow themselves up, do they really die for a Sharia state in this life, or is it the promise of an afterlife that they're after?
Sophie, excellent question. Because they live and think that they are going to have the alternative life after life. They picturing, and they told me, the posters and the songs that everybody will sing about them, the money that the family and the honor that the family will get for them, but they cause a lot of sorrow to those families because nobody raised his child to do so. Bin Laden didn't send his own children to blow themselves up when he sent others to carry out September 11. Even Hamas leaders didn't send their own children, and other terrorist leaders do not send their own children to blow themselves up. So if it's so good, why they don't send their own children? And mothers of shaheeds, of martyrs, ask me these questions. They said, we know that those terrorists send their own children to have the best education in the West when the tuition is so high and we pay the price, the money and pay the price personally when they actually recruit our children without our permission. Especially it's very sensitive when we are speaking about the girls and send them to carry out terror attacks, to blow themselves up, or things like that. This
Dr.
is
Burko.
the main issue. We see here abusive of those youth, abusive of those children.
So, Dr. Burko, Boko Haram used 3 little girls as suicide bombers, and they went unnoticed by security guards because of their age and gender. Like you said, you know, some of the Hamas people, they actually use women with the belts on their stomachs, so they pretend that they're pregnant, and no one's going to stop a pregnant woman. So is it easier also to use children for such a task? And do recruiters actually ask for the family's consent? What has to happen to a family so that they actually give their child to the terrorists? I mean, you've said many times that no family is actually willing to give their child.
The family do not give their child.
Ever?
Sophie,
Is there any case
do not
where
give the child? Ever. Let's say that I met so many terrorists, the family didn't give. Sometimes it's pushed to do that. Boko Haram kidnapped those little girls and abused them. And we know that Boko Haram kidnapped so many girls in school, and they use them as sexually slaves, sell them, and use them as female suicide bombers. Nobody take his own baby and give him as a present to the terrorists to blow him up. It's like, it's bizarre and it's unnatural and it's not usual thing. Perhaps you'll find something, but this is I cannot say that this is the phenomenon in general. But the use of children, in my point of view, women and children are in the same basket. They use them together, they abuse them together. Because even to take a little child by ISIS and ask him to behead someone, it's abuse of this child. And changing him, creating from him a murderer. Actually, because the child, in his moral judgment, the whole developing is in his moral judgment, it's part of being growing up, to be an adult. And if he's a child, he doesn't really understand what he's doing. He doesn't really responsible for killing a person. So this is something that we see, and they know that. So this incitement, and this is brainwashes, and I call this phenomenon as duda in Arabic, which means the worm that digging inside the mind. It's the same process like drug addicts who use, who actually think about their next fix and get their drugs. This is the way how they thing, and this is the way how they educate children. I met with a female suicide bomber who told me that her nephew started to speak with her about being a shaheed. He was 3-year-old. And she said, I tried to say, no, you don't have to go in this direction. She told me, I thought that I don't want that this spark will be inside him because he'll go in this direction that there is no way back.
Dr. Berko, thank you so much for this wonderful insight and for this interview. We were talking to Dr. Anat Berko, criminologist and expert in terrorist psychology, discussing how women are pushed onto the path of extremism and what happens to them once they join the violent jihad. That's it for this edition of Sophie & Co. I'll see you next time.